Byron Elton.
Yes.
Welcome to your video profile.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Good to be in Vancouver.
It's wonderful to have you here. And I should say that, first of all, for anybody that's listening, that you and I are brothers, and you would not know that, of course, if you heard us both speaking at the same time.
Yeah. Good to be back in Vancouver.
Well, let's talk about you.
Okay.
This is what this is all about. It's about your history, your career, and so on. Now, you and I grew up in Alberta.
Yep.
Edmonton, Alberta.
Yep.
And we had a lot of similar memories, but growing up in a media family with radio, our father was in radio. And tell us about that early influence on you, how it affected your later life, and growing up in Edmonton, Alberta. A lot of people in the United States around, other than maybe the Edmonton Oilers or something like that, would know what Alberta's like, and growing up in the prairies.
Yeah, so Dad was in radio, was the general manager. Actually, I think he started out as the program manager, but he ended up as the general manager.
On air he was for a while.
And he did a lot of great talent. Probably should have stayed talent, quite frankly. I mean, he was a great manager, but he was a singularly talented on-air
singer,
fellow.
Performer.
Raconteur. I mean, best MC I've ever seen ever. Passed away some years ago.
A talent that you've inherited.
Well, as the guy said in the song, my life has been a poor attempt to imitate the man. But I take that as a real compliment. But yeah, so he was in radio, ran CJCA for Selkirk. Wasn't that the company?
I guess, yeah.
And at an early age, I realized that was pretty cool. First of all, it was a top 40 station, so it was a rock and roll station.
Yeah, 45s.
And we always had all the records at home. And my first recollection of what it was like being the son of a guy who ran the radio, other than the fact that we would go downtown and be at the radio station, and Peggy Miller, and he had one of his personalities. Remember Jim Hand?
Jim Hand, yeah.
Jim Hand, and I remember his signature. We smoked a big cigar,
yeah.
and it was Halloween, and CJCA had this promotion on where they'd say to the kids, when you go to a home, you say, "Is this the CJCA Funhouse?" or whatever it was. And if it were, then you'd get some sort of a silver dollar or something. And every kid that came to our house said, "Is this the CJCA Funhouse?" And then, of course, every time there was a football game, we would always go.
Right.
We'd never...
Edmonton Eskimos.
The Edmonton Eskimos. I was in the Knothole gang, and of course, the radio station did the play-by-play. Sponsored by Henry Singer. Henry Singer has a suit, has a suit, has a suit. And Dad wrote that commercial. Anyway, I grew up, I remember thinking, and later on I was watching an interview with John Lennon, and they're talking about, how did you get into rock and roll? He says, I was a young boy growing up in Liverpool, and I saw a TV special on Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
And he was driving a Rolls Royce and all these screaming girls, and he looked
pretty good to me.
Yeah, he says, that's a good job. And I had the same experience, I thought, well, you get free tickets to everything, you go to every party, that's a good job.
So you wound up in
I did. And then we moved to Vancouver, where he ran CKWX. And, kind of organically, a bunch of us went, our oldest brother didn't, but then John and you and I and Chester all went into media.
Yeah, yeah.
So I didn't go into radio, I went into television, spent a long time in TV, all in the States. And I ended up running TV stations down in California. Santa Barbara was my last one. And then right around 1998, 1999, I really became fascinated with the whole online thing. Internet. And I wanted to be involved in that because I had a personal experience where I thought, I think this is a big deal. I could be wrong, but I think this kind of changes everything, And so I had an opportunity, and it was clear to me that the TV at the time wasn't interested in doing anything other than traditional terrestrial stuff. And so I had a chance to go to work for AOL. And this was in January of 2000. And back when AOL was all that, right?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, my first job, interestingly enough, was in Toronto. It was AOL Canada. So I went up to Canada, and the very first week on the job, we bought Time Warner. I came to my second Monday on the job, and they said, big announcement, AOL has bought Time Warner. And I thought, I'm going to retire in 5 years.
This is exactly the right place.
Yeah, exactly. But I stayed for 8.5 years, and it was fabulous. I mean, I learned so much about...
Interactive.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's not the way now. I mean, they have a tidy little business, but back then,
It was
most people's email they sent, first email was
Yeah.
AOL and the whole.
but it was a closed network. I think that's what.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
called.
yeah. And you know, they became blinded by the subscription model, which was that $23 a month times 32 million. That's a lot of money.
Then Hotmail came out and Gmail.
And you know, the internal discussions were all about if people can get this for free, are they? And the other thing was of course, broadband, because it was all dial-up at that point.
Right.
And you know, we all know the history of what happened to AOL, but it was a fabulous experience.
Yeah.
It met wonderful. And from that incubation, you look around on a lot of the big online companies now. Many of them came from AOL, so it was a great incubator in that sense. And then
You went back to television though,
no, actually, well, I went back to work for Univision in the States.
because you were Spanish.
I actually I lived as a young man in Mexico for 2 years. I have a great fondness for the culture and the language and the music and the food and the people. And so I had a chance to go back and run Univision Online. Had offices. I continued to live in Santa Barbara, where I continue to live today, but I had offices in New York, LA, and then spent a lot of time in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did that for about 2 years, and then I'm consulting now. So didn't go actually back into TV, although I'm working with television stations
There
as
you
a
go. Of course,
consultant.
it's part of the mix.
Yeah, and now of course they're all about digital. They're all about online.
Everything's on.
Their,
Television's
their
on.
their core business is still selling those 30-second
I remember
spots,
you
but-
telling me one time, and I guess it was back in those days before AOL or right around that period, that the television stations every year would line up have a big party and line up all of their advertisers and tell them how much they were going to spend this year.
That's right. Oh,
And there was
yeah.
one year where it kind of didn't happen because the advertisers started using online now, and you could see that churn in the market. And you sort of sensed that.
Well, you know what happened to me is I was living in Santa Barbara, running the ABC affiliate in Santa Barbara, and when you run the local station there, you know, you're a big fish in a small pond. Everybody wants to know you, and all the nonprofits want to do
This
business.
was in Monterey.
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara.
I was
Sorry.
in Monterey first, and then
Okay,
came to
okay.
Santa Barbara. And once a year, UCSB, the University of California, Santa Barbara, would conduct this symposium where they would invite a representative from all the different media. So they had the publisher of the newspaper, they had me, they had the cable person, they had radio. And they would convene about 300 students. We'd all have 10 minutes to kind of give a State of the Union address about what we were doing. And then we would take questions. And it was always fascinating to me. For about 3 years, I got all the questions. I mean, 90% of the questions, they'd say, well, Mr. Elton, tell us about, and I used to come home and I'd say to Linda, I'd say, boy, am I in the right place? I mean, nobody cares about radio or newspaper. It's all about TV, and nobody's thinking I want to be a reporter for a newspaper. And then the last year, they invited one other guy, and he was online. And came for the Q&A. I didn't get one question. Everything was, so tell us about the future of online. And I went home to Linda, I said, I'm a dinosaur, right? I mean, television is still a very profitable business, but it's all going online. So that was really my epiphany, where I said, yeah, I think I want to do that. And I did. Now it's all kind of coalesced, and you know, all the reports about television dying, it didn't happen. They're still incredibly successful.
Well, I remember when, you know, Father was in the radio business and the advent of television then. When we were kids, there was only 1 or 2 channels and they were black and white. But there was this sense in the radio business that television, who's going to listen to the radio?
Exactly.
Now that they got talking radio, which is TV, of course, television changed radio dramatically, but it certainly didn't kill it. I mean, these media all work together in ways that we hadn't, you know, they hadn't imagined. But I think the same thing. I mean, television is television. It's television on the internet. It's, you know,
Yeah.
newspapers are still newspapers even though they're on the internet. So this mega medium that we have now really encompasses everything, but the genres.
But it's inexorable what's going to happen. I mean, we spent some time just before this interview talking about some of the stuff that you're doing. And I couldn't help but thinking, I thought, you know, this is a game changer. The ability to do what used to cost millions of dollars in equipment and hundreds of thousands of dollars in airtime and satellite time and whatnot. And now with these internet connections and high definition webcams and the ability to access people anywhere all over the world, it's a huge game changer.
Well, here we are in a small studio, private studio in the middle of downtown Vancouver. It's not a big television station, with a good internet connection and a few good cameras, decent space.
And I think we'd all agree, it really
produce
comes down to the talent.
Yeah.
And so there's our
Great
unfair
talent,
advantage
great
right
content.
there. 2 Eltons. It's unfair. Game over.
Thank you for this. This is fantastic.
Hey, thanks,
Should we
Jimmy.
play tennis again?
Let's do it. We played tennis this morning. I can't remember the score, actually.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But there was a
either.
lot of love.
I remember at least.
There was a lot of love.
And love means nothing in tennis.
Louf. French for egg.
I won one game. I remember that. All right,
Thanks, buddy.
All right, take care.